must have been like the air I was in was real heavy, moist, stifling. Just pulled me quickly on. Went through some doors, down a hallway to another room.
What are you guys doing? What's going on here? Who are you people? Touch me. Don't touch me! Don't! Get your hands off me! Don't touch me! What are you doing? What are you doing? Get off me!
Well, that is a little different than the movie, but closer to what... I know that any time that you do a production that they have to try to make it bigger than life so people actually look at things like this. I don't know why. Your experience was quite different than anything else that anybody's heard. Did you, when you woke up, you weren't restrained?
No, I wasn't.
When you woke up, there were beings around you just standing there?
Yeah, well, you know, I became aware of them very slowly. I could hear the sounds of movement around me, and I was just kind of figuring out where I was before I ever actually laid eyes on them.
You know, you and I talked about 2 years ago about this. When you woke up, or after you had even come back and you were talking to Mike and everybody, you didn't have a mark or scratch. You had some kind of just a prick.
Yeah, there was a puncture wound on the inside of my right arm, but you know, I can't say whether that had anything to do with my experience or not.
Falling in the woods after that happened, that could have happened. You didn't have any scoop marks. You didn't have any anything like we normally hear.
No.
Right, so this is not... We need to make the distinction. This is not a classic abduction case. You found yourself on board this craft. It's not like they came in your bedroom and took you through the walls or anything. When you came to, were they touching you? Were they working on you in any way?
No, they weren't actually laying their hands on me during that period of time. They were moving around, but they were like some distance from me, and I wasn't really following the movements or paying attention to that. It was just, you know, I noticed this thing across my chest and this light above me, and I was just kind of, you know, thinking, where am I? Is this a hospital? And then it was when I finally could focus my eyes clearly and saw this one standing there so close that I just flipped out.
So as far as you know, they didn't drill into your eye, they didn't stuff gelatin in your mouth?
None of those things that you saw in the movie Fire in the Sky.
You know, we have we've just started a hotline here for people who have had abduction experiences and don't quite know what to do about that. And a couple of times I've talked to people who have said, well, I saw fire in the sky and I'm afraid that's what they're going to do to me. Yeah. And it's really...
Well, you know, this is a real fear, and it's portraying a fear that I had. Because when I woke up and I saw these instruments laid out there, you know, things I've never seen before, I can't even tell you what they are, but it really bothered, it weighed on my mind for a long time what they might have been doing to me before I came to. And you know, that part of the movie at least expresses that fear that I had as what had been going on.
So your idea, and you were telling Tracy Torme that this is the fear that I had, and you need to show the fear that I have without actually somebody experiencing it. So you wanted him to be able to portray what was going through your mind.
Well, you know, this was not an arrangement between me and him. As far as how this all came about, you know, I said this is exactly what happened, and I went into great detail.
No cocoons?
You know, no.
No falling into another
And all of this
cocoon?
stuff was a surprise to me. You know, it was not included in the scripts that I saw, and it was only until I saw the finished movie that I knew at that point what they'd done with the abduction experience. I was not responsible for that. You know, a lot of people were upset about the changes and felt that I'd somehow cooperated or agreed to this, but I certainly didn't. You know, I argued against it, and I wrote letters and sent faxes and tried to get some of these things more back on what actually happened, and I think I was successful to some extent. You should have seen the stuff they wanted to do.
Oh, I
can't even imagine.
The aliens in your book, or portrayed in the beginning of the book in the paperback when it came out, had not as large of eyes as what we're seeing now, but yet here you said that they had very large eyes. Very large eyes in comparison to our eyes versus very large eyes of what we're seeing, or the gray beings that are being portrayed now. Is that what it was like?
Well, you know, people, you know, have a distorted, when something's a little bit outsized, you know, you're trying to describe a person that you've seen. You know, you describe them as having a really prominent chin or a large nose, or you say this girl had big eyes, you know. You measure that, you know, this is going to be millimeters, you know, and so it was strikingly large, but in attempting to be exactly accurate, the representations that I had done here are as close as you can get. The eyes dominated my mind. You know, the aftermath, these images, it was something I couldn't shake, and so, you know, it loomed in my mind as being a huge thing. But when I started working with an artist, and you get into the details of it, you know, these eyes are too big to fit in a head. You know, I had to face, you know, the fact that this impression of hugeness couldn't have been that great. You know, so. When I finally, you know, after 20 or so different representations, got to the likenesses that are represented here in the book, that rang the truest for me.
The ETs that you said that the humanoid beings that came, or the human-looking beings that came after when you were in some kind of a control room, the other beings prior to that, didn't you describe them as having a red suit? Or not?
The earlier beings?
Yeah, the ones that you first
it was kind
encountered.
of an orangish brown suit. They were not naked like in the movie.
Okay, so they had no collar. It was just like a one-piece fitting thing that you could remember. There
Yeah, it
wasn't
was
any
just sort of a
zippers or
loose coverall. You know, there may have been more detail than I recall, but I've tried very hard to stick to strictly what I remember, and I don't want to go beyond that.
Sure.
Do you, in this time, ensuing time, have you had any or felt like you've been contacted at all by extraterrestrials?
Yes, since this happened?
Yes.
Well, I had a series of real disturbing dreams about the time the movie was coming out, but I came to conclude that this was probably just because I was, you know, stirring up these old memories and talking about it so much again. So, you know.
So this isn't the classic abduction scenario where it seems like they come back periodically.
No. I have to say that were I to see something like this again, I probably would not say anything about it. You know, I didn't come forward with this. You know, by the time I was returned, it was an international story, and it was out of my hands. I never came forward at all. It just was already out there.
Somebody else asked me, did you, in the audience, did you before notice or after this experience, did you notice any physical changes? Did your body hair grow any less or any more? Did your fingernails grow any more? Did you have a change of eating habits, sleeping habits?
Well, there was certainly a change in sleeping habits. I had difficulty sleeping. I had a lot of nightmares about it in the immediate aftermath. And I lost so much sleep and was under such constant stress for so long. I did have stress-related symptoms.